Hi, this week we are going to talk a little bit about how to draw well, how to draw better, and why the way that most people's brains are organized makes it difficult to draw well. So, the first thing that you guys need to know is all drawing well really takes is practice. So, just like you eventually, at one point or another, learned how to tie your shoes, or maybe dribble a basketball, or shoot a free throw, or really anything else that requires practice, um, you can improve with your drawing skills as you practice, but most people don't know or haven't learned the skill set just yet, which is what I'm going to be teaching you, don't worry, how to draw better and how to become a better artist. Most people stop learning or practicing how to draw about middle school age. So, right where you guys are at, you have the opportunity to change that. That's why so many adults, no matter how accomplished they may be in their lives, they may have, a PhD, they may be a doctor, they may have, developed and built a brand new software engineering company. They still tend to draw like children. I'm sure you guys can all imagine one of your teachers at one time or another who has tried to draw something up on the whiteboard and then said, like, oh, I'm a terrible drawer, don't look at what I'm drawing. But, they have a college degree, they may have a master's degree in teaching. They're really accomplished at what they teach in the subject matter, but not necessarily drawing. And the reason is because of our dominant left brain. So the easiest way to learn how to draw better, at least to get into the practice, and that's what we're going to be doing for our assignments this week, is learning how to quiet down your really dominant left brain and start to practice looking at things like an artist. So what do I mean by right brain and left brain? Well, your brain is organized into a couple of different parts, including your right hemisphere and your left hemisphere. And those are connected with a band of nerves called your corpus callosum. And what's interesting about how your brain is organized is everything on, oh, is this going to be backwards? Perfect. Everything on the left side of your body is controlled by your right brain and vice versa. So if you ever suffer from a head injury, if you maybe have a stroke or something like that, you may notice weakness on the opposite side of your body. So if you maybe got bonked on the right side of the head, gonna have to do mirror image for all of this. If you got bonked on the right side of your head, you may notice that you have weakness or numbness on the left side of your body, which, that's cross-connected, but that's what happens with your corpus callosum. So the way that your brain is organized is, in the majority of people, if I were to pop you into what's called an fMRI, or a functional MRI machine, it measures blood flow to different areas of your brain, and I were to give you a vocabulary test, or if I were to, ask you to picture writing an essay, something language-based, the left side of your brain would light up. In most people, and it's not universally true, but in most people, your language centers are in the left side of your brain. Because of that, and because so much of your schoolwork and the world around us is language-based, most people have really strong dominant left brains and left hemispheres. So this also affects handedness. If you happen to be right-handed, that's controlled by your left brain, and vice versa. So if you're left-handed, that's controlled by your right brain. What that basically means is not only as you're writing words down, practicing with writing, with your right hand, then you're even more ingrained. Oh, shoot, this mirror thing is going to throw me off. This is very confusing. If you are right-handed, it's controlled by your left brain, which is your language dominant. It's also where you do logical sequencing. It's also where mathematical problem solving is done. But then on the right side of the brain, which again typically controls the left side of your body, and if you're left-handed, that's where creativity is. And that's where non-sequential thinking is, where you can think kind of big picture, you can make inductions from things. It's where your intuition is. It's also where your emotional centers are stored. And so we can tap into our left brain usually a lot easier because we just have so much practice with it with schoolwork. And if you're right-handed, it's even easier for you to practice. But your right brain tends to get overlooked a lot. With school, if any of you guys have been doing puzzles recently, that's a right brain activity. That's a creative activity. Spatial reasoning also takes place on the right side of your brain. So whenever you felt frustrated or angry or upset that a drawing that you've done doesn't look good, it doesn't look right, it looks weird, that's probably because your left brain is actually doing it. So your left brain, of course, has the ability to like make words, right? If you're writing with your hand, you're writing words down. Again, your language center. But your left brain also likes symbols and to simplify things. And one of the problems with that is these symbols, like a flower, right? This isn't a particular flower. It's not also a particularly good drawing of a flower. But you guys can tell what it is because it has, you know, the important flower parts. It's got a couple of petals, it's got a thing in the center, a stem, a leaf, and it's in some squiggly grass. This is a left brain drawing. This is a symbol, it's simplified, it is in place of a word or a concept. And the reason that so many people struggle with drawing well is because your dominant left brain wants to take over the drawing task. It's so used to doing stuff that it wants to take over even when it's a job that it doesn't do well. Sorry, but your left brain sucks at drawing. So, what we're going to do this week is I'm going to introduce you to 3 activities that will help you start to quiet down your left brain and activate your right brain a little bit more. We'll talk about those a little bit more in depth in individual videos, but here's a quick overview. You're going to be doing 3 exercises this week. And also, these are great exercises for, like, before you sit down to do a longer drawing, just doing any one of these for a couple of minutes can really help wake up your right brain and tell your left brain, like, okay, you can check out for a little bit, you can relax for a little bit, you don't have to be as on right now, and your right brain can take over the task. Your left brain sucks at drawing. Your right brain is really, really good at drawing. You just have to give it the chance, and you have to give it the skills. Also, all of the exercises I'm going to show you, and there are a ton more, all come from a book called Drawing on the Right Side of the Brain by Betty Edwards. It's kind of like the textbook about basic drawing skills. I recommend it if you guys are bored while you're at home. So one of the ways to trick your left brain into shutting off is by giving it a task that it is not super comfortable or familiar with. And that is with a face-vase drawing. So I'll talk you through this in a separate video, but you can see why they're called face-vase drawings. It's the profile of a human face inverted so that they're like facing each other. And if you were to say fill it in, it would end up looking like a vase. You're also going to learn how to do monster face-vase drawings, and we'll talk about why some people find the human face easier and why some people find the monster face a little bit easier. The next one that you're going to do is something called blind contour drawings. This is where you will be looking really, really closely at the edges of things and where 2 parts come together. So your left brain has a really easily accessible and consistent symbol for what a hand looks like, for example, or even a human face. And those symbols, while accurate in, like, you know, this is what a basic human face has, you know, like eyes, nose, mouth, whatever, doesn't actually look super accurate, and that's why you tend to get frustrated looking at your drawings when you're finished with them, because your left brain did a bad job. So because you have a symbol for hand, your left brain is like, I got this, I'm going to take over, I know what the symbol is, and your right brain doesn't get a chance to do it. But when you throw a task in, like looking at the outside edge of something, like where two folds of skin meet or where air touches your hand, your left brain doesn't have a symbol for that. It doesn't have something that's easily accessible for, well, I know what that's supposed to look like. And your left brain gets a little bit confused, and so your right brain can take over. What I want you to keep in mind for this one is the first word in this is blind, which means you will not be looking at your paper for this assignment. You can see that these drawings look a little bit ridiculous. And then the third thing we're going to talk about is negative space. We'll talk a little bit more about space in our coming weeks, but negative space is the area around an object. So the air around, the space between, it's everything but the object. The story I always tell is when I was in college, I had this really eccentric professor who would set us up in a big circle and we'd have something to draw in the middle of the room. And one time we got set up, there were a bunch of chairs stacked on top of each other, and chairs are notoriously difficult to draw. And he just said, draw not chair. And then he left the room to go smoke a cigarette. And we all looked at each other like, what in the world is happening? What does he mean, draw not chair? Well, what he should have told us to do was to focus on the negative space. So in this slide, you'll see this drawing over here. This is actually a drawing by somebody pretty famous. This is a drawing of a chair by Vincent van Gogh. But the longer you look at it, the weirder it looks. You can see like both the front and the side right here. It looks like if you sat down on it, you would slide off of it because the seat is at a weird angle. The legs right here are bowed out at different angles. The back isn't straight. So yeah, you can tell that it's a chair, but there's some weird stuff going on with it. So drawing more complicated things or drawing things that are placed next to each other can be a lot easier if instead of the object, which again, your left brain probably has a symbol for, your brain definitely has a symbol for a chair, concentrate on the space around and the space between objects. And that's another way to quiet down your left brain and give your right brain an opportunity to draw better. So these are the 3 activities that I'll go into a little bit more depth individually, but this is the overview for what we're up to this week.